One thing that I learned about lust is it's extremely hard to escape from because it's a constant battle between the flesh and the spirit. What our flesh desires is this form of intimacy, regardless of what level it's on. But what our spirit desires is real connection, something that's more worthwhile. And during my journey of, battling with lust and doing everything in my power to truly overcome it, one thing that I've learned is the fact that the ego itself seeks to conquer, not connect. Lust is something that's driven by the desire to feel powerful, validated, or even wanted, not to truly be loved. And that was something that I really had to take the time to dissect, because oftentimes when you're going through these phases and you're figuring out who you truly are, one of the most critical things or one of the most impactful things around this current time is just validation. When you're working towards becoming a better version of yourself, we're more of a sponge to the things around us because we don't really have that true sense of self yet. So it can be easy for us to be driven by something like lust, but eventually this validation that you may get from it, this form of power that you may feel, eventually wears down. That's why I feel like it's very important to understand what it is that you're out here seeking. What deep-rooted problems within yourself are you trying to heal from, or are you just trying to cover up? But this repeated indulgence in this form of lust doesn't do anything but numb the mind and disconnects the heart. It takes a true passion out of what it means to be physically intimate with somebody. And this was something that I had to learn the hard way, because at some point you are going to feel numb to the thought of being sexual with somebody. These desires that you may have, the feelings that you may act on, it's almost going to feel like you're doing it for nothing. But this form of real intimacy that your soul may crave requires patience. You have to be clear on what it is that you want. But if you're battling with lust right now, you got to understand that you're going to have to choose short-term gratification, or either gain a sense of patience for the things that you know that you deserve or the things that you may want in your life. You may have trauma that you need to heal from, but this version of lust, indulging in so many different, sexual encounters, isn't going to do anything for you. It's going to put you in a position to acquire so many different variations of energy based on the people that you may be messing with, and then it's going to leave you a wreck. Because whether you realize it or not, energy is transferable. So if you're messing around with different people, it's going to be very hard for you to be mentally grounded and continue to make progress in your life if your mind is not where it needs to be. And anybody that's been through a similar phase, then you know that when you're going through something like this, it's very hard for you to feel content and this form of true solitude where you're at. You may have so many different soul ties that it's just so hard for you to stay grounded. But that itself isn't even necessarily the problem. The problem is, why do you need to be validated through sexual encounters? This is something that I had to ask myself. And when I realized that I had a lot of deep-rooted, problems that I had to fix, traumas that I had to heal from, abandonment issues, it all made sense. But it starts with you being present and understanding what the problem is exactly. Lust itself is what feeds the ego, and it starves the soul. Things that are actually meant for you, people that are actually meant for you. Lust is pulling you away from those things. And one thing that you may not understand about surface level connections is that they come with a cost. The more that you feed lust, the more that you numb yourself to genuine connections. You wouldn't believe how many times after my true lustful stage, where I would be put in a position where I would deal with good quality people and I just wouldn't feel anything, because it may not have given me that rush that seeing super promiscuous type of people are the way that would have made me feel. We should always require something before giving our bodies to someone. And I feel like as men, we're not taught self-respect. We're not taught to have certain boundaries in place and to treat our bodies like the true temple that it is. And that's just something that you have to learn and eventually build on. But once you do get to that point where you respect yourself, you'll realize that not everybody deserves your energy or your time. It's okay to not sleep with people. It's okay to not do it from a position of wanting to people please or just feed the ego. Having this sense of power, being able to conquer. These are all surface level things when you have a lot to take care of in your life. And I just heard something similar to this in a song. One of these rappers said, "Show me where your attention's at, and I'll show you where you're going to end up." And all that simply means is just show me what you're focused on the daily basis, whether it's women, whether it's progression and growth, and I'll show you exactly where you're going to end up. You got to understand that the body responds to chemistry but the soul itself responds to intention. Learning to distinguish between the two is a part of growing in wisdom and self-awareness. You'd be surprised how long it took me to really find this sense of self-worth, to the point where I realized that not everybody deserved my energy. You gotta realize that you're doing more harm to yourself than anything else. Yes, in the moment it may feel good, but each and every last one of y'all that's been in this position, after you finish, y'all know what I mean, I'm not gonna get too deep because I ain't trying to get flagged, but after you finish, you have a complete mindset shift. You may even ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? You know that this person is not your person. You know that it's strictly coming from a lustful nature, and anybody with any true depth and a sense of being, you aren't going to continue to allow this to go on much longer. So take the time today to understand exactly what it is that's keeping you in this place. If you have something similar going on where you're battling with the lustful nature, understand that you're not alone. There's people out here that are going through the exact same thing as you, if not worse. It's just a matter of what you're going to do in order to overcome it. You're only a slave to this version of lust as long as you entertain it. Controlling what your eyes is on, controlling the certain things that you may see on social media because you know they're a direct trigger and they lead to you making irrational decisions like this. These are the steps that I had to take personally, and it helped me tremendously. But you are not going to be perfect. There is going to be times where you feel like you 100% overcame this version of lust, and then you may get down the line and you may slip up again. But the problem isn't within you slipping up. The real benefit is the fact that you went a certain amount of time and you decreased how often you've done these certain things. God is not asking you to be perfect. I feel like more so he's just asking you to be present and be conscious of the flaws and the mistakes that you're making and then moving accordingly. That's all repenting is. It's just turning away, going in the opposite direction. So when we can take accountability for our wrongs and really start to move different, then that's when we'll get different results. And one thing that's very important that we have to just keep in mind is the fact that when we're just giving ourselves to anyone, just ask yourself, like, what am I saving for my wife or my husband? I got to the point in my life where I was asking myself, like, well, if I was to meet my wife right now, what haven't I done, to the point where I would feel like this is a fresh start for me? When you're giving somebody every version of you, when you've been doing something for so long, it just feels like a cycle, whether it's good or bad. And then when something new comes around, something that you may want, of course, you've already been so exposed to certain things that there's only so much that you can actually change. So how is it that you're going to get a different result if you're just doing the same exact things, if that makes sense? So I say that to say, just save something for your future wife or your future husband, something that, you know, just keeps that spark or just keeps you in a position where you feel like you're actually growing. Take some time to detox if you have to. Take some time to not indulge in anything like that and really just get your mind right, because you'd be surprised how much strength it takes in order to not, you know, fall victim to those certain actions. It really does build character, but it puts you in a position to learn what it is that you truly want and desire out of not only love, but just life. But this form of withholding from lust really does create clarity. Understand that abstaining isn't repression. It just gives you time to grow. It gives you time to process. It gives you time to figure out exactly what you may want. But lust itself will never lead you in the right direction. And if you're acting through flesh, if you are allowing yourself mentally to be tempted into doing things that are not desirable to your spirit, at some point it is going to come back to hunt you. But if you made it to the end of the video, I just want to say thank you so much. It's your boy Blue Jay Tay. Drop a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.